Hey, Mrs. Paul here. We are at the end of our unit and we are wrapping up our unit learning about how to write a conclusion. A couple of months ago, we started in on conclusions and we decided that that unit was not the best time to teach conclusions. And so we're teaching it now, and for the rest of the year, we will continue to focus on writing procedures and writing conclusions. And so you'll continue to see these things. This is also the last video that you'll have before I come back. So this week we'll work on conclusions and the test review, and then next week we'll continue to work on the test review and have the test at the end of the week. So let's take a look at our notebook really quickly, and then we'll move on to conclusions. This is also a really good time to get a new notebook. When I come back, we are starting in on a new unit on photosynthesis. And so a new unit is always the perfect time to start a new notebook. So be working on that. You have 2 weeks to get a new notebook. And when I come back, if you are not able to get a new notebook, but your notebook is getting pretty full, then come and talk to me and we'll get you a new notebook. So in your notebook, here are the pages that you will label for this week and actually for the rest of the unit. So if we take a look here, we have our entry task, and then we're going to have a lot of practice this week on conclusions. You're going to be doing some conclusions on your own and conclusions as a team. And so starting today, we're going to start out with you started out with a team pre-assessment, and that's on page 205 or page 197. As we go through the lecture, we will have a conclusion frame chart that you will record, and on the back of that page, you are going to record the practice that we are going to do together as we work on this lecture. Then we have a practice about cell size, a practice about plant mass, and a practice about carrot mass. And then we'll wrap that up with a quiz at the end of the week just to practice and make sure we understand conclusions. And then, like I said, that's the end of our unit, and so we'll be putting in the test review, and then we'll have a page for the test as well. So please go ahead and pause for a moment and make sure you have all of your pages labeled for this week. So, moving on to conclusions. On the pre-assessment that you did a team pre-assessment, and at the end you were supposed to write down numbers 1 through 5 and jot down just a couple of words for each sentence, pretty much, to help you know how to write a conclusion. And so the first sentence, what we're doing is answering our scientific question. And so here's what our frame looks like. In conclusion, when the MV either increased, decreased, or stayed the same, you're going to choose one of those. The RV increased, decreased, or stayed the same. Again, choosing either increased, decreased, or stayed the same. So, on the back of your paper that you're doing your conclusion frame on, so that would be page 208 for the advanced classes and page 200 for the regular biology classes, you're going to be recording the practice that we're going to do right now together. So, here's our first sentence of our conclusion frame. We are going to be using this data, and our scientific question asks, how does the type of utensil, beak, affect the population of utensils after 5 generations? And so this is similar to your bird beak lab and data that you may have received there. And in some classes, maybe the knives won. In some classes, maybe the spoons, and in some classes, maybe the forks. Every year I do this, there's always different results. At the bottom here, it says, write a conclusion using the data above, including the following attributes. This is what you will see on every conclusion assessment that we give you, because this is exactly what the state gives you on the end of course exam. And it tells you right here what you need to have in your conclusion and even how to go above a level 3. So we always start by answering the experimental question. And so that's what we did here. We're answering it by saying, here's what the MV was and what happened to it, and here's what happened to the RV. So go ahead and pause for a moment, and on your pages, so again, page 208 or page 200, you are going to write this first sentence and change these blanks by filling in from the data here. So go ahead and pause and write your own sentence. So let's take a look at what your sentence looks like and how it should be. So in conclusion, when the manipulated variable, which was the type of utensil, changed from knives to forks, the RV, which is population, decreased. So here's something that's a little bit different. Notice that here we usually say the MV increased, decreased, or stayed the same. But with utensils, you can't really say, oh, the utensil increased, because it didn't really increase or decrease. It wasn't in amount, it just changed. It changed from the knives to the forks. And when that changed from the knives to the forks, we saw that the population went from 12 to 0, meaning that the population decreased. So, notice that in this first sentence, we don't have any numbers or data or anything. We just give the answer. So we answered the scientific question. The population changed because it went from knives to forks. So let's take a look at what we need to put in our second sentence. So here's our first sentence, and then here's our new sentence. When the MV was, and we're going to give the high MV data, then the RV was, and we're going to give that high RV data. So here's just the sentence that we're working on right now, and here's the data again. So find the high and low data. So our high data here was 12 and our low data was 0. And so again, the MV is one of these utensils and the RV is the population. So our sentence looks like this. When the type of utensil was the knives, then the population was 12. So our high data was knives, and the high population with that was 12. So then our next sentence, we're going to be giving the low data. When the MV was low MV data, the RV was low RV data. So here's just that sentence. And I'd like you to go ahead and record in your notebook this sentence with the correct data. So at this point, you should have all of this frame so far. You should have first sentence, second sentence, and now you should have your third sentence that we're going to take a look at together right now. So here's our third sentence, and we know that the MV is the utensil, and we know that the RV will be the population over here, and we want the low data. And so when the type of utensil was forks, the population was 0. So almost done with our conclusion. In our next sentence, we need to find the difference. So this means that when the MV increased or decreased by however much, the RV increased or decreased by however much as well. So again, this may be a little bit different. This conclusion frame fits most conclusions, and we may have to change it slightly to fit our data better. So here's just the sentence that we're dealing with here. And here's our data. So I'd like you to go ahead and pause and record this in your notebook. So record what you think goes into the blanks. So you should have your sentence now with the blanks filled in, and let's take a look at what it should look like. So this means that when the type of utensil changed, so remember we can't increase or decrease the type of utensil, it's just going to change. And because there's no amount, we don't really have a number with any units, we just have the type of utensil. So when the type of utensil changed from knives to forks, the population decreased by 12 utensils. And so notice that with the RV, we can use our frame just as it is. It's just that MV that we have to make slightly different. So here is our entire conclusion frame. So notice we have worked through all of this except this last sentence. And really, this last sentence is the most important thing that you should be doing here. Yes, we need the data and we need to have that in there, but now we have to be able to explain it. If you do not give a scientific reasoning or scientific explanation, you will not be scoring a 3 on your quiz or the end of course exam or whatever. You have to give a scientific explanation. You have to show you know what the data means and how that data was found. So we're going to work on just this last sentence. This happened because. Why? Why is it that after so many generations, we no longer have any forks? Why is the population mainly knives now? So think about what you've learned in the past couple of weeks about natural selection. How does natural selection happen? How were the knives naturally selected to have such an increase in their population, whereas the forks were not naturally selected and they have a decrease in their population? Notice really quickly that here in our bullet points, we're talking about this bullet point right here. Provide the scientific explanation for the trend in the data. So please go ahead and pause and take a moment to record why you think this happened. Finish off your conclusion with a scientific reasoning. So let's take a look at this together. This happened because natural selection is occurring to the utensils, the beaks, causing more of the population to have a knife beak rather than a fork beak. This happens due to the knives being able to receive the food that they need in order to live and reproduce, whereas the forks were not able to receive the food that they needed and could not survive and could not reproduce. So this tells me that you know that this is natural selection occurring, and this also tells me that you know why natural selection occurs. Remember, natural selection is the survival of the fittest. Those that can survive are the most fit, and they will continue to live, and their population will continue to grow. Whereas those that are not very fit, they're going to die, and the population will go away. And it will show that there's more of one population than the other. Kind of like the peppered moths. Remember the peppered moths? When the Industrial Revolution occurred, the black ones were able to blend in more, and so it looked like natural selection had occurred because there were more black moths. Really what was happening was that natural selection was occurring because the black moths were surviving, because the white moths could be seen, they could be eaten, their population dwindled, it went away. So here is our final conclusion frame. You are going to go ahead and pause and take a couple of minutes to record this conclusion frame. As you do so, anywhere that's underlined, please underline that in your notebook. If you color code it, awesome. You can use the colored pencils at the front of the room, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but at least underline it so you know that those pieces that are underlined are the pieces that you will be replacing, kind of like in our procedure frame. So you're going to take a moment to record this, and for the next couple of days, you are going to have several practices to practice writing conclusions. You're going to be working by yourself, and then you'll be working as a team and as a class. And when you get the test review, you will find that there is another conclusion practice on that, and that the unit review also includes everything from this unit that you need to be practicing in order to prepare for the test. I would highly recommend that you also go back and review your quizzes, maybe making some flashcards of the charts as well, so that you are ready to do really awesome on that test. See you guys.